On a frigid November morning in 1944, a B-17 bomber, its battered frame pockmarked with flak damage, emerged from the clouds over Belgium. To the astonishment of the Allied soldiers on the ground, this flying fortress, a symbol of American ingenuity and resilience, executed a perfect landing, its wheels gently kissing the runway. But as Major John B. Crisp and his team rushed to the scene, their hearts pounding, they braced themselves for the worst. The B-17 had earned its reputation as a nearly indestructible war machine, but the extent of the visible damage left little hope for the crew inside. Crisp's team circled the aircraft, noting the storied design that had made it a legend in the skies, a fortress in every sense, bristling with machine guns and capable of delivering devastating payloads while defying enemy fire. This bomber had been instrumental in crippling Nazi Germany's war machine, dropping more than 640,000 tons of bombs during the relentless Allied campaign. As they climbed aboard, an eerie silence greeted them. No wounded crew, no bodies, just a haunting emptiness. Parachutes lay neatly packed, and half-eaten chocolate bars were scattered about. The only clue was a cryptic note in the codebook reading, "Bad flak." The soldiers exchanged bewildered glances. How had this battered bomber, built for war and meant to be manned by a crew of 10, managed to fly and land itself? In the early 1930s, as most nations around the globe realized the clouds of war were gathering, Boeing set out on an audacious journey to redefine aerial warfare. The United States Army Air Corps, or USAAC, had put forth a bold challenge: to create a bomber capable of unprecedented range, speed, and firepower. Boeing's answer was the Model 299, later known as the XB-17, a prototype that would not only compete but aim to dominate the skies. The competition was fierce. Boeing faced off against Douglas and Martin, two aviation giants vying for the lucrative military contract. The stakes were high and the pressure immense. Boeing poured its heart into the XB-17, crafting an aircraft that was nothing short of revolutionary. The bomber boasted 4 Pratt & Whitney R1690 Hornet radial engines, each churning out 750 horsepower, allowing the plane to soar at altitudes previously thought impossible for a heavy bomber. It was a fortress in the sky, bristling with machine guns and capable of delivering a lethal payload while outpacing its rivals. But just as Boeing seemed poised for victory, disaster struck. During a crucial test flight on October 30th, 1935, the Model 299 crashed in a fiery wreck. The prototype, along with Boeing's hopes, lay in ruins. Major Ployer P. Hill, the test pilot, did not survive, and the project was thrown into chaos. The crash was a crushing blow that nearly spelled the end for Boeing's ambitions. Yet out of this catastrophe arose a pivotal innovation: the modern pilot checklist. The accident had been caused by a simple oversight: the failure to release the control surface gust locks. The checklist, now a standard in aviation, was born from the lessons learned that day. Despite the setback, the Air Corps saw the potential in Boeing's design. General Douglas MacArthur, then Army Chief of Staff, along with Brigadier General Frank Maxwell Andrews, a staunch advocate of the 4-engine bomber concept, championed the B-17. They believed in its long-range capabilities and strategic value, pushing for its continued development. Their support proved decisive. The USAAC ordered 13 more B-17s for further testing, and in 1938, the first of these flying fortresses took to the skies. The B-17's return was triumphant. During a fly-off against its competitors, the 4-engine marvel outperformed them all, cruising from Seattle to Dayton, Ohio in record time. The Model 299 had risen from the ashes, evolving into a symbol of American ingenuity and resilience. It was now clear: the flying fortress was destined to become a legend. As the B-17 Flying Fortress transitioned from the drawing board to the skies, its journey from prototype to battlefield became a testament to American creativity and perseverance. The early deployments of the B-17 saw it thrust into the crucible of the Pacific Theater. Here, it faced its baptism of fire against Japanese forces. In these initial raids, the B-17 took on Japanese shipping and airfields, laying the groundwork for its reputation as a robust and reliable bomber. Though these early missions revealed some vulnerabilities, such as the challenges of high-altitude bombing and the need for better defensive armament, the B-17's potential was undeniable. However, in the European theater, the B-17 truly earned its legendary status. As part of the USAAF strategic bombing campaign, the B-17 was tasked with daylight raids over Nazi Germany, a role that would test the aircraft's limits and the resolve of its crews. The Flying Fortress became the backbone of the Allied bombing strategy, complementing the RAF's night bombers by relentlessly pounding German industrial and military targets during the day. The B-17's impact was profound, dropping over 640,000 tons of bombs on Nazi Germany and occupied territories. This impressive figure represented more than 42% of the total 1.5 million tons of bombs deployed by Allied aircraft in the conflict. This relentless assault crippled German war production and sapped the morale of the Axis powers. However, the success of these missions came at a steep cost. The Luftwaffe threw everything it had at the B-17s, from flak to fighter planes, yet the Flying Fortress earned its name. Tales of B-17s returning to base with massive sections of their wings missing, tails shredded, and engines aflame became legendary. Wally Hoffman, a B-17 pilot with the 8th Air Force, said, quote, "The plane can be cut and slashed almost to pieces by enemy fire and bring its crew home." The B-17 evolved throughout the war, with each new variant incorporating lessons learned from the battlefield. The introduction of turbo superchargers allowed the B-17 to reach higher altitudes, reducing the threat from enemy fighters. Armament was continuously upgraded, with the final B-17G model bristling with 13 50 caliber machine guns, making it a fearsome adversary for any German fighter pilot. By the time the B-17 Flying Fortress had earned its legendary status in the skies over Europe, stories of its near-mythical toughness were already spreading among Allied forces. These were tales of bombers returning to base riddled with bullet holes, of crews surviving against impossible odds. But no story was as eerie or as inexplicable as that of the Phantom Fortress, the B-17 that landed itself. It was November 23, 1944, when the Phantom Fortress embarked on what should have been a routine bombing mission over Nazi Germany. The target was the heavily defended Leuna oil refinery at Meersburg, known as one of the most dangerous assignments due to its heavy anti-aircraft defenses. The B-17, serial number 43-38545, took to the skies with its 9-man crew, each member bracing for the battle ahead. As the bomber approached its target, the onslaught began. Flak filled the sky, and enemy fighters closed in. The aircraft was hit repeatedly, sustaining severe damage. With its engines failing and the situation deteriorating, the crew had no choice but to abandon the aircraft, parachuting out one by one, believing they had left the fortress to its doom. But the B-17 had a will of its own. Defying all odds, the battered bomber continued its flight, cruising aimlessly over the war-torn landscape of Europe. Hours later, it appeared over the Belgian countryside, far from the battlefield, descending slowly. The RAF personnel stationed at Kortenberg watched in disbelief as the massive aircraft, its engine sputtering and wings damaged, performed a rough but controlled landing. Major John B. Crisp, leading the ground crew, cautiously approached the motionless bomber, half expecting to find the crew inside. Instead, he was met with an unsettling scene. The interior was eerily quiet, the seats empty, the cockpit devoid of life. In Crisp's own words, quote, "I made a thorough search, and our most remarkable find in the fuselage was about a dozen parachutes, neatly wrapped and ready for clipping on." This made the whereabouts of the crew even more mysterious. The Sperry bomb site remained untouched, and various pieces of gear, fur-lined jackets, half-eaten chocolate bars, lay undisturbed, as if the crew had just stepped out. The Phantom Fortress had landed itself, with no human hand guiding it. The discovery sparked widespread curiosity and bewilderment. How had the B-17 managed such a feat? Investigations were launched, but no definitive answers were ever found. Some speculated that the aircraft's autopilot had somehow been engaged, guiding the plane to a safe landing. Others believed that a combination of sheer luck and the B-17's famed durability had allowed it to make the journey intact. The story quickly spread, becoming a sensation when it was published in Stars and Stripes, the American military newspaper. The Phantom Fortress became a legend, symbolizing the B-17's almost supernatural resilience and the indomitable spirit of those who flew it. This ghostly tale, set against the backdrop of war, remains one of the most enduring mysteries of World War II, a testament to the ruggedness of the flying fortress and the extraordinary events that can occur in the fog of war. In the annals of B-17 history, one aircraft stands out, not only for its firepower, but also for its crew's sheer audacity. Known as Old 666, this B-17 flying fortress began its life inauspiciously, marred by a string of bad luck that earned it a notorious reputation. The aircraft was nearly scrapped, destined to be cannibalized for parts. But fate had other plans. A group of renegade airmen, led by the audacious Captain J. Zemer, saw potential, whereas others saw only a cursed hulk. Together, they resurrected Old 666, transforming it into the most heavily armed bomber in the Pacific Theater. The modifications were extensive and borderline absurd. The crew, dubbed the Eager Beavers for their relentless drive, doubled the aircraft's firepower, outfitting it with 19 50-caliber machine guns, more than any other B-17 in the war. They replaced single guns with twin mounts, upgraded calibers, and even added a fixed gun atop the pilot station. By the time they were done, Old 666 bristled with weaponry, resembling an industrial porcupine more than a standard bomber. The plane's new identity was cemented. No longer a harbinger of bad luck, Old 666 was now a flying fortress in the truest sense. This incredible machine faced its ultimate test on June 16, 1943, during a photo reconnaissance mission over Bougainville, a Japanese stronghold. The mission was perilous from the outset. Captain Zemer, now a seasoned and decorated pilot, knew the risks but refused to back down. As Old 666 approached its target, the skies erupted with enemy fire. Japanese Mitsubishi A6M0 fighters swarmed the bomber, intent on bringing it down. The crew of Old 666 found themselves in one of the most sustained and intense air battles of the Pacific War. The Zeros attacked from all angles, below, behind, and head-on, each fighter intent on delivering the final blow. But the Eager Beavers fought back with unmatched ferocity. Zemer and his bombardier, Sergeant Joe Sarnowski, manned the guns with precision, downing several enemy fighters despite being gravely injured themselves. At one point, Sarnowski, bleeding and nearly incapacitated, managed to drag himself back to his station to take out another Zero before succumbing to his wounds. The damage to Old 666 was catastrophic. Its fuselage was riddled with holes, engines faltering, and the crew was barely conscious. Yet, against all odds, the bomber held together. Zemer, despite his injuries, kept the plane aloft, refusing to let it fall into enemy hands. After what seemed an eternity, the Japanese fighters broke off, and Old 666, battered but unbowed, limped back to base. The aftermath of the mission was as extraordinary as the battle itself. Captain J. Zemer and Sergeant Joe Sarnowski were awarded the Medal of Honor for their unmatched bravery, making them the most highly decorated aircrew in American history. The rest of the crew received Distinguished Service Crosses, a testament to their valor under fire. Old 666, the most heavily armed fortress, had not just survived, it had cemented its place in the pantheon of wartime legends. As the echoes of World War II faded, the B-17 Flying Fortress transitioned from a wartime workhorse to a symbol of resilience and heroism. Among the surviving B-17s, a few have transcended their military origins to become icons in their own right. The Memphis Belle, perhaps the most famous of all, completed 25 combat missions and returned home to a hero's welcome. It now rests in the National Museum of the United States Air Force, meticulously restored to its wartime glory. Another legendary B-17, the Swoos, is the oldest surviving example of the aircraft, its battle scars a testament to the brutal campaigns of the Pacific. In the years following the war, the B-17 found new roles in a rapidly changing world. As the Cold War dawned, these bombers were repurposed for air-sea rescue missions, earning the nickname Dumbos for their life-saving efforts. Fitted with airborne lifeboats, they scoured the seas for downed pilots, a far cry from their previous role as instruments of destruction. The B-17s also played a crucial role in the early days of atomic testing, serving as drones that flew through the mushroom clouds of Operation Crossroads, gathering data on the terrifying new power humanity had unleashed. However, perhaps the most enduring legacy of the B-17 is its cultural impact. From the silver screen to the pages of history books, the Flying Fortress has captured the imagination of generations. Films like 12 O'Clock High and documentaries have immortalized the B-17's daring missions, while air shows across the globe feature the thunderous roar of its engines, reminding us of a time when the fate of the world hung in the balance. These surviving aircraft, now lovingly restored and maintained by passionate historians and aviators, serve as flying museums, preserving the legacy of those who served and sacrificed. Today, a handful of B-17s are still taking to the skies, and their missions now are of education and remembrance. Aviation historian John Lundstrom says, quote, "These planes are living history. Every time a B-17 takes off, it's like opening a window to the past, a chance for people to connect with the generation that defined courage." The B-17's design, with its iconic silhouette and unparalleled toughness, has become a symbol not just of American ingenuity, but of the indomitable spirits of the people who built and flew it.